Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Today we have the brand new upcoming release from Revelot. This is the Hexmariner 42 set to be released on the 23rd of January 2024. Now, like usual Revelot fashion, you have lots of different colorways, 9 to be exact, plus another 2 limited editions, and early bird prices start from around $298 to around $350 for the more special options. Now, fulfillment will be in about 3 weeks after launch, and bicolors are to be fulfilled around March 2024. Now, I opted for this black aventurine steel version. This is $325 or around the £250 mark at launch, but $389 RRP, and that's just an example of the savings possible if you were to buy this at the time of launch. Now, I love the Hexmariner design from Revelot. So much so, I still have their original Hexmariner 39mm. I kept on to the one which I was sent out for review because, simply put, there is nothing else like this. Now, the problem with this style of watch is that, yes, it is played out, but it doesn't take away from how good of a design it is for a daily watch. This is why, when Revelot totally transformed this into something so similar yet so different, it works so well. Now, they have upsized it to 42mm to reach out to a wider audience, as a 39mm can be a little polarizing on the wider market. Therefore, this watch now measures in at 42mm on the diameter, 13mm thick, and 48mm on the lug to lug. Including the male end links, this will increase to 52.5mm. And we also have a 22mm wide end link with a standard taper of -2mm towards the end of the clasp. Now, I bet you there will be voices in the comments shouting out for a 40mm, and I wouldn't disagree. I think it's a great opening for Revelot to bring us a 40mm in the near future. Specs wise, you still get the same good old reliable Seiko NH35 automatic movement powering this watch. You still get a sapphire crystal with AR coating, a ceramic bezel inset sitting on a 120 click unidirectional diving bezel, 200 meters of water resistance with a screw down crown and a screw down case back. They have also added a loomed crown, which is unnecessary but thoughtful, as the bezel insert is also loomed. The bracelet still has pin and collar adjustments, and you get quick release spring bars, which is again very thoughtful. And you also get 5 micro adjustment milled fold over clasp with twin pushers. Now, the watch does pack a really nice punch, and Revelot massively pushed the bow tie, particularly on the colorways. And due to those colorways, you also get some different dial textures. Now, with this aventurine, you don't get that trademark Hexmariner dial with those perfect honeycomb style patterns, but it is very hard for me to pass up an aventurine dial. So the honeycomb patterns are available on the other colors, but you still get that distinct angular theme. Now, before we get into talking about this dial, just a quick disclaimer, guys. This is a prototype model, and when Revelot sent this in to me, they sent it with the notice that the 12 o'clock marker is just slightly off tilt. You can see the 12 o'clock marker is just slightly like twisted at the bottom. But again, with prototype watches, this is what you get, and a lot of the times us reviewers do get prototype models. So coming back to the dial, you don't get that honeycomb pattern on this one, but with this aventurine, you still get that distinct angular theme. The dial features applied hour markers, which are all 6-sided with perfectly polished bevels. They've also tried to do this on the date window at 6, which I can imagine is quite difficult on the aventurine dial. You also get a color matched date wheel, and you get some of the nicest watch hands I have ever seen. Great angles, they're beveled on either side with coarse linear brushing running down the center. Now, all this micro detailing really does impress me, because this is what separates the good from the basic. Exceptional attention to detail. They've also brushed the second hand in the same way. Now, all this combined, it has a real impact on the overall look of the dial. Edges of the bezel are polished with diamond-like scallops. The rotation is nice and smooth. It's not extremely tactile, but it has a really nice balance between the clicky feel and the smoother, subtle glide. I quite like the sound and the feel, and it does line up nicely. The bezel insert is loomed, as are the hour markers. With this colorway, we have the BGW9 all over. Now, including the new loomed crown, It's very bright and you've got solid loom application. There's no patchiness and it is really well applied throughout. Now moving on to what actually makes this homage seem a bit more unique is just this hexy case. The multiple facets are beautifully carved and finished really well to a very high degree. The Hexmariner really does show how to do facets correctly. From the soft brushing on the side of the case, these large polished bevels breaking up the transitions to the lugs, everything is executed perfectly and the lines are very crisp. There's amazing definition and workmanship on offer here. The crown is a robust 7mm, plenty of grip for a smooth and effortless engagement and function. Now the screw down case back is fully brushed, it features the specifications and they have also gone to the trouble of engraving the colorway on the case back. And that is insane because you have just increased the cost where you don't really need to. It just goes to show the level of detail Revelot are putting in. Now the exhibition case back has a nice bit of decoration, trying to cover up the good old boring and reliable NH35, but guess what? That glass is also sapphire. There is just so much on offer here. Now moving on to the bracelet, let's start off at the end links. Now because Revelot is so good, this jumped out to me. The end link line across, the first facet doesn't line up with the case lugs and it is just 0. something of a millimeter off from being perfect. Now imagine they tightened up the tolerances and made this line up with the lugs. That would absolutely blow me away, but it is forgivable. Now the links themselves are trifaceted along the center with an addition of another facet on the outer links. All the links are fully brushed except those outer facets on the outer links which are fully polished, but you've also got full brushing on the side of the bracelet. It's all machined really well, there are no sharp edges and it feels really smooth in hand. Now the links are held together by pin and collar, which no doubt is a bit of a pain, but you only have to do it once. Now the clasp is milled with a fold over shell, polished bevel sides and with 5 micro adjustments. The logo is along the center and the clasp is noticeably also short and quite wide, and that's due to the 20mm measurement of the final link. It does fit and sit well on the wrist. Now of course it is due an upgrade with an on-the-fly adjustment, maybe in a future version for a little more cash, and I don't think it's something many people would moan about. Now they have also looked after us by giving us quick release pins to make strap changes easy, but I honestly prefer mine in a bracelet because it's just such a good match. Now wearability, this is entirely subjective to wrist size. With my 6.5 inch wrist, of course I prefer the way that 39mm wears. It does remind me of this whole SKX 013 and the SKX 007 here. And the lug to lug is nice and short and you get a good hug from the bracelet. Now this 42mm doesn't wear badly though. You feel a slight top heaviness from the heavy case, and even though you have a total off just over 52mm on the lug to lug, the downturn is enough for the first link to touch the sides of your wrist, and it is exactly like wearing a bigger version of 39. Again, somewhat similar to say wearing an MM200 and an MM300, and I have both and I enjoy them equally. So it does give you a big watch feel, but it doesn't look oversized on a smaller wrist and it does look as good as the 39mm. So with that said, what is there to summarize? We are a greedy bunch. The more you give us, the more we want. Now I would love to see screw-in pins and an on-the-fly adjustable clasp for around £50 more and about £100 more for a Miyota 9000 series. But for £250 at launch and around £300 thereafter, with an aventurine dial and all the other specs and the level of detail in the build quality, it is definitely worth it. Now that's it from me today guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know your thoughts as always in the comment section below. And thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next video.